So the reason why I decided to file for this particular divorce is called no fault divorce in Abu Dhabi court, and it was quite new then. Actually, my case was maybe one of a very few amount, because Dubai courts is a longer process, which is the typical process that most people would go through. Exactly. Yeah. So I had two choices, and again, everyone's like, "You got divorced in 6 weeks. You didn't give it time." I was like, "I had 2 years. From the time I found out I was 7 months pregnant, had my son." And then what happened after 2 years, it actually all transpired that there was way more than what I was told. So those 2 years, it wasn't that I had 2 years of saying I'm leaving. I probably did the usual, I have a child, let's bring my son here, we can figure out. He said it was one time, it was a mistake. All of these things, let me stay and figure out. But obviously there was way more. And that made me think this is a behavior that he hasn't really processed as it's not okay.
Hello and welcome back to the 360 Perspective podcast with me, Trisha. It is another wonderful Thursday, a new episode that is loading. And today's episode is, I think, let me say, a sensitive one. It can ruffle a bit of, feathers here and there. And it's just one of those topics that I believe we need to talk about more often, especially within Christian circles, because it's a reality that we can't run away from in today's society. And I have a wonderful, wonderful guest who joined us to unpack this journey that she's been through. And I think what I love about her is that she has been using her pain and turned it into a purpose. And she's also a podcaster of an amazing podcast that we'll get to talk more about as we go on with this episode. But I don't want to keep you guys any longer. So let me introduce her. Welcome.
Thank you. Oh, what a nice intro.
Well,
Yeah.
I wanted to say a lot more, but then I was like, I don't want to pre-pack. There's so much stuff that you have within you and who you are as a person. But then I'll give you a few minutes to just introduce yourself, who you are, what you do,
Okay.
and then we'll dive right
We'll go into it. Okay.
That I know a lot of people are waiting to hear what it's all about.
Yes. So I'm Sharon Missah. Who am I? This question actually has evolved over the 3 years, and we'll get to kind of why. But definitely I have many, many hats, as do a lot of people, I believe. So I'll first say I'm a woman of faith. I'm a Christian. God is my foundation. And through unpacking and learning and discovering God, I've found out the many talents and blessings and titles that he has given me. So I will start with I'm a storyteller, which has definitely led for me starting my own communications and podcast platform. I'm a creative. I've been in marketing for 16 years. So very much a marketeer who loves creating content, and communications is very important. I'm a mother. I have a beautiful, handsome son who's 5, almost 5. A daughter, a sister, an auntie. And yeah, I feel like I'm definitely discovering more of who I am. And I've spent the last 3 years fully embracing how God has designed me and the purpose that he has created me for. So yeah, that's a bit of a flavor, but yeah, lots of different titles.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so I want us to go right into the meat of today's conversation, which, ladies and gentlemen, today we get to talk about a very sensitive topic around navigating divorce, because the reality is no one gets married
Yes.
with the thought of ever getting to that point of even just the word divorce, especially as a Christian, it's nowhere in your books, it's nowhere in your thoughts, it's nowhere in your circles, it's not even a conversation that ever crops up.
So true.
But then in today's society, sometimes we, there are people who found themselves there, and you're one of those people who found themselves there.
Yeah.
So maybe you can take us back through your journey, because sometimes not all the time, but sometimes I realize from a lot of conversations and people that I've spoken to who've ended up divorcing, the foundation of how the relationship started was already shaky. And so, even as the Bible says, when the foundation is shaky, when the storms come and the winds blow and all these things happen, the house is going to crash,
100%.
but then when the foundation is solid, even with all the challenges and things that come your way, especially in regards to marriage, because marriage is not, it's not easy in the sense that, I mean, it's joyful, it's
Yeah.
beautiful, but there's work
Yes.
that needs, there's an intentionality. And I think that's what people talk about when they say work.
Yeah.
It's not like it's hard and it's miserable, but then there's a level of intentionality that you have to put in for it to actually work and be as beautiful as God intended for it to be. So maybe you can begin by just unpacking your journey and how did you find yourself?
Yeah.
Here on this
Gosh. Oh my
podcast.
goodness. I think we need longer than 1 hour, but I will summarize. So yes, I would say I got married, or actually I got married and met my ex-husband when I was young. I think 26.
Yeah.
So still actually in hindsight didn't really know myself. Growing up West African culture, born and raised in the UK, but we very much had our culture around us in our home. So Ghanaian culture. And I'll speak for West African Ghanaian culture, but I think most African culture is, at quite a young age, you're expected to find your husband, build your family. And yes, there's positives towards that because you're young, you grow together, you build together. I think that's a beautiful thing. But equally, I think the cons can be when you're not fully educated on the foundation. And I'm talking from a big biblical stance because I think only really now I'm fully understanding why God created marriage. Then you couldn't tell me, it's like, oh, I'm supposed to be with someone. We're supposed to love each other, love God. But I didn't fully understand that. So at the young age, I would say of 26, I met my ex-husband, but we had dated and I don't think we dated right. And I think that's where the foundation point comes in for 4 years. And even that's quite a long time now. I reflect back. I was like, no one was really in a rush. We didn't get much pressure. I was quite grateful. My parents were always like, build your independence, have your education, get a great career. So I ticked all those boxes and then meet someone and be stable and then grow. So, yeah, we met through mutual friends and it was all quite light. He happened to be Ghanaian as well. So culturally, it was easy. Just by chance, our fathers had known of each other from Ghana years ago. So it all seemed to kind of tick a box. And even then, actually, in my very naive state, I was like, this is God. God has brought this man to me. He ticks all the boxes culturally, and very intelligent. I'm very big on being able to learn from people, especially if I'm going to be in a relationship. I want to add value. I want to learn. So there was all these great things, qualities about him. Even though we're not married, he had all of these great qualities.
Was he a believer?
Yeah. I pause to say yes. Yes, he believes in God. I believe still. He would call himself a Christian. He's never told me he didn't. So I say yes, and I'm not judging because I've also been on my own journey to like, could I really say that I'm a Christian? Am I following God? But I think also at that young age, you unpack and you learn and you make mistakes, etc. So by God's grace, hopefully more so through this journey, he's also, tried to get a stronger, relationship with God, hopefully. So yeah, that foundation ticks a box. He's Christian, he's Ghanaian, we're in the UK, all of that. So that seemed quite easy. But in those 4 years, I would say I didn't know him because I also didn't have the wisdom around the foundation of marriage and the discernment in regards to what's healthy and what's unhealthy, or the right language and questioning in regards to when you're getting to know someone. And I always say now that I'm in my season of partnership, we'll get to that later on, the types of questions that I was asking then were irrelevant. It's not how you build a foundation or really get to know someone. And yes, people will tell you what they want, but you also study their actions. And I think I was quite naive to actually fully observe the situation and myself as well. Am I mature enough? Am I ready for this? Have I grown? Am I the person that I want my husband to be? Because I also believe you have to be the person that you desire as well and build those skills and add value. And I wasn't there yet either. So yeah, the foundation wasn't strong enough because there wasn't wisdom. I don't think there was wisdom in the choices that we both made. But yes, we met at 26. We dated for quite a long time, 4 years. In terms of dated, we were not married. So I still call that the dating phase. And then we decided to progress to marriage after the 4 years. So we met in the UK. I was actually moving to Dubai on secondment with my company. So wasn't really thinking about long-term marriage. I was very much in my independent, want to explore a different country, build my career. And it just so happened that this person came at the same time and we seemed to be aligned in terms of wanting to explore a different place. So we ended up being in Dubai together, actually. So we had a big chunk of our time, 10 years, almost of my time was with that individual, dating, married in Dubai. So we started to build our life here. And then we decided that, being in this country, the two of us here alone, pretty much at that time, let's move to the next step of marriage. And even then, that next step of marriage did not prepare fully, did not, from, again, biblical stance of my faith, did I really understand why God designed marriage? No. Did we do pre-counseling? No, which I think is very important because I think at that stage you unpack and people also help you to think about different perspectives or ask different questions.
Yeah, the hard questions.
Hard questions,
You would
yes.
never ask if it's
Yep,
just
exactly.
lovey-dovey
Yes,
and I like
exactly.
you and the chemistry and all that stuff going on.
So I feel we needed that. And I'm a big believer in kind of wise counsel, ideally from older people, people that have gone through marriage, the ups and downs, and maybe even gone through adultery and survived it because there was repentance and remorse, just different perspectives. So we never sought that. Our parents kind of told us the basics of you stay together, forgiveness, but we didn't really ever go into the hard topics. So we did our traditional wedding, which is quite common in West African culture. So he came to my family home, bought the gifts, etc. And then we were married. And I think through the years, we'd stayed married for almost 2-3 years before we had a child. Again, there was no kind of like pressure around doing these things. We were still very much enjoying each other, traveling, building our life. We bought a property in Dubai, really planning for the future. But throughout all of that thread, and that's quite a long time, when I was going through therapy, I was like, that's such a long time to say I didn't know the person. I didn't ask the right questions. How did I get here?
Were you also in your personal journey of discovering yourself? Because I realized as a woman, because part of knowing the other person is you investing time. Because the more self-aware you are, the things that you absolutely cannot miss. Absolutely no way.
Yeah.
But I think, especially as women who are very much career focused and focused on all these things that they desire to achieve, you don't really take quality time to get to discover yourself. Because if you don't know yourself, you won't even know what you want. What are your standards? What are your expectations? So you kind of just go along with the flow.
Yes.
And then in hindsight, that's when you realize, oh my goodness, all this had been happening. And I was very oblivious of all this.
Yeah.
So was that your case? Like, were you taking time to discover yourself?
100%. Yeah, no, I can plainly say no because I've spent the 3 years now fully understanding who I am. And it's weird at a later stage that I'm saying that because I've always been quite confident in myself. I've always been quite focused. I've been quite obedient in kind of doing the right things. So you could never tell me then that I didn't know myself. And I think from the outside, everyone would be like, oh, Sharon, she's very sure of herself. She's quite, she's quite focused. But no, because I think that's where you miss, actually are our values aligned. I didn't see a lot of this stuff because I didn't fully, before getting married, self-invest and take time out to say, these are my values. These are my non-negotiables. This is Sharon. This is what I'm about. This is my annoying behavior that someone else might not like. So I didn't do that. And I think as we were going through life during the marriage, I was probably unraveling and unpacking, I would say during the later stage where I found out a lot around what was actually happening. I think I was, you feel it in your body, your intuition. I was like, something doesn't feel right in this partnership. Something's a bit too one-sided. But again, because the advice I got, you stay married and you get through it. So I think I'm very big at suppressing. Going through therapy, she was like, whoa, you can really suppress your emotions to the point where something doesn't exist. You can convince yourself that whatever that is cannot be my reality. And I think it got to that point.
I think the saddest bit about suppressing is, they say it's you bottle up, but it gets to a place where, the pressure can you can't hold the pressure anymore and everything just
comes out. Yeah.
Yeah.
That unraveling stage. Do you know what I always say? I feel like God was probably always speaking to me, but I wasn't hearing, I wasn't paying attention. So during, how I found out, unfortunately, there was a lot of infidelity on my ex-husband's side. And I could say I was fully blindsided. That's what I would say in hindsight, I never knew, I didn't see this. But because I suppress a lot, and I probably, obviously no one wants to see that. And I didn't see anything in front of me. No one could ever say that I saw him. But you feel something. You feel
Like your
something's not
intuition.
right. Your intuition doesn't lie. But I also say that's God whispering to me.
Yeah,
And I
and you
would
don't
not
even ask the
listen.
hard questions.
I was
Because I
not.
think part of self-awareness for me, especially, which I don't know, that's the well, no, I can't quite say that. I think awareness is work that you have to put in, whether you're in your 20s or whether
So
you're
true.
in your 30s. It's not really an age factor
Doesn't
thing.
end. Yeah.
It's more about intentionality,
Correct.
discovering really who you are. But I think for me, by the time I was getting married, I was very comfortable with asking hard questions.
Good.
So
Yes.
really, even after entering marriage, asking hard questions is not,
I love.
I don't have to hide or pretend.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
literally just confront him, put everything on the table. And I think that's the gift of self-awareness, that if you've not taken time, then you end up running away from truths and realities that
true.
I need to check on this. If my intuition is wrong, I need to unpack this a bit more.
That's so true. And I was because I've always been, I think through childhood, quite submissive. Tell Sharon to do something, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it to my best ability, and I'm going to make my parents proud. I've always had that nature around me. So I've never been, and we were not given the space to express, we didn't have tough conversations in our household. It was like, it's okay, we just ignore. Oh, you're the strong one. I had that so many times. Middle child syndrome is me. So I never was given the language or the space, and I didn't want to seem difficult. So I felt like, putting these things on the table is me being difficult. So you're so right. Now, oh my gosh, we'll get to that. If you date me now,
Totally different person.
I don't want to know what your favorite color is. Sure. Okay, you like blue, but that's not what we're talking about, because that's not the essence of really learning someone and trying to be observant and understand. And what are the trauma points? What are your values? I didn't do any of that. And because I didn't do that self-discovery or self-awareness, I kind of lived in this like fairy tale bubble.
Yeah.
So once I found out about the infidelity, and because there were multiple, so it wasn't even like, you can forgive. I'm big on forgiveness, and I forgive my ex-husband for his actions. I think that's his journey. There's definitely clear signs as to where that trauma or behavior type or pattern has come from. And I have to take accountability. I probably wasn't as, I can't say, probably wasn't as emotionally in tune to what he needed. I'm a very like, you're at work, you're busy, so am I. See you at home, everything's good. He probably didn't have the language to say, hey, I need more of you.
That's true.
Because
it takes two to tango.
It takes two. I have to take accountability. Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot that I had to be self-aware in terms of what was my behavior in this.
Yeah.
What type of husband was he, and what did he need? I'm not saying that's why you go and you have affairs. That's wrong.
It's not an excuse.
Yeah.
Nonetheless.
But then equally, I need to, when I go into my next relationship, I need to be aware of kind of what I can do better, how I can be softer, less guarded, all of these things. So it was a big lesson learned for sure. But I would definitely say I got married at a time where I needed to do more self-discovery, needed to have the language to ask. I wouldn't even say difficult questions, just questions, right?
Yeah.
It's not even difficult questions. It's just that you need to know.
It's part of getting to know each other.
That's it.
And I think that's why, as you said, premarital counseling, the beauty about it is when the two of you are so much in love, there are conversations that maybe you have it at the back of your head, but you really don't want to unpack it. But then premarital counseling brings all this reality to the table: finances,
true.
chores in the house, whether it's about sex, your past history, sexual history, like all these conversations that if you didn't take time to, like, let's say, invest in, self-awareness, self-reflection, and all those things that can lead you to asking those questions, then premarital counseling offers that opportunity.
So true.
And I've realized that people who actually do end up breaking off the wedding or engagement just after doing premarital counseling, because then a lot of things are unearthed. During that process.
Yeah. It's so important. It's so important. And I think, unfortunately, and again, in my community, we don't have those conversations. I can't say everyone, but definitely for me, no one prepared me to say, have you checked whether he's always been faithful in his relationships? Is this a pattern? Is it a pattern from his upbringing? What did he see as a child? And everyone has a choice as you become an adult. I don't want to judge someone to say, oh, you're in a single parent household. My son is now in a single parent household. But I'm praying that obviously the trauma that he may go through from not having that father figure and two-parent household is something that I intentionally try to help him work through. But equally as an adult, you have a choice to also do your healing. But it's being aware of that, because sometimes I'm seeing a child grow in front of me, they absorb everything. So sometimes you normalize what you see, right? And that's not necessarily the child's fault, but it gets to a point where if you know that's wrong, you have to work through that challenge, whether it is that or, alcohol addiction. There's so many different things in life. So I give grace because, I think that's a journey that probably he had seen and normalized.
And to be honest, for me, I'm personally a huge advocate, especially for single people, to make sure that during that season, take time to heal, take time to work through your traumas.
Yes.
Because the reality is, if you're healed and the two of you come together, and then there's wholeness in that marriage. But then if both of you are broken and you've not intentionally put in the work to work through some of those traumas, oh my gosh, they're going to blow up in marriage. Marriage is not going to heal some of those traumas if you've not taken time to deal with them. So I'm a big advocate of healthy singles make healthy marriage for the better part of it. Not all the time, but if you've done the work before marriage, when you enter marriage, it's less of a burden and less of work.
Or there's awareness, because some people are not aware. I think it starts from, are you aware that this behavior is not okay? Or you might know it's not okay, but are you willing, because doing that healing work is hard. Are you willing to even touch on this very sore point to get better, to work through it? So it starts with the intentionality, regardless of what it is. But I think also you have to be mature enough to say, I shouldn't be dating yet because I'm struggling with this, or I don't think I can really be faithful, or I don't think I can fulfill the marriage as how God intended marriage to be. And that's even educating yourself on what God designed marriage to be is so important. It's so important. I miss that mark massively. Yeah.
But thank God for God's grace.
God, listen.
Amazing story, even beyond that, which we'll get to unpack. But my next question is, what was the, that last straw that broke the camel's back? Because the reality is you're the one who filed
for divorce.
What really led you to making that tough decision, which a lot of women shy away from making? So they would rather endure and persevere, and especially when there's a kid involved, all these dynamics, and you're like, let me just hold on, let me pray for God's grace, let me let me just keep going on and figure out just how to either ignore this reality of my life. But for you, what was that, the straw that broke the camel's back
question.
that led you to, okay, I'm done?
Yeah, it was a journey, because I know people look at me now, they'll probably watch this podcast and say, oh, she has her braids, she's got makeup on, she's shining. And I think a lot of people saw this transition because I didn't talk about it for a long time. And then I launched Let's Talk DXB. So like, you just got divorced and then now you're thriving overnight. I was like, no.
Yeah.
That journey probably. So I first found out about the infidelity. And when I say when he wants to wake you up, he will wake you up. It was so much in my face where I was like, no. Like, it was like God was shaking me to say, Sharon, hello, you need to wake up now. This is not okay. I don't even want you to normalize this or be in this. Like, I'm a child of God. He created me for more. He doesn't want to see me suffering. Yes, bad things happen in life, and there's forgiveness and remorse, like I talk about, and repentance. Genuine repentance has to be there. And I think there has to be an understanding of what I've done is so wrong, the magnitude of it. I personally didn't see that. So I think God's awakening of this was too much on me. Like, spiritually, I could not. I just could. Physically, I was vomiting. It was so overwhelming to the point where I was like, I can't stay in this. And then also, when I first found out I was 7 months pregnant during COVID. So COVID, where am I going? Like I'm trying to get my son here. There's no family that can come. I'm a suppressor. So I just shut it down. And my ex-husband was very much like, we need to move forward. Obviously, we need to get on with it. And I get it. It's either like you're going to stay or go, right? Because you can't stay in this limbo, but you need time to process and heal. So it was 2 years, 2 years of me going through my pregnancy, going through COVID, having Zane, I couldn't sit with it. I couldn't sit with the feeling of this is what my marriage is. And I think I wasn't given the grace to really get the full answers. Like it was very much like, oh, come on, let's not talk about it. I'm like, I need to understand. And because I wasn't
Did you seek therapy during that time? For the
once
both
or
of you?
twice. To be fair, he tried. He tried to take us to couples therapy. We did one or two. We were not intentional. It was very much like, okay, let's tick that box. But no, it wasn't, it wasn't enough for us to kind of resolve in that way. And I think because we both were not intentional with it, you have to really both want to go
Absolutely.
unpack, go separately as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, separate.
Absolutely.
So,
unpack separately. And then when you're
yes.
healthy enough, or when you're, sure enough
Yep.
or confident enough to do it
Yeah.
together, and then do it
Exactly.
together, but not, like as a compulsory kind of like process.
Yes.
Especially when you're not ready.
That's it.
Yeah.
And a new mother, I was pregnant,
Yeah.
trying to get through COVID, through pregnancy. My son arrives, new mother, no help. Oh, it was tough.
In a foreign country?
In a foreign country.
No family.
No. My ex-husband, his dad had passed away we had a lot. There was a lot on our shoulders. So he's grieving the loss of his dad. We have a new baby in the house. And then there's this like silent thing of like infidelity that I wasn't really allowed to kind of talk through because too much was happening. So that was 2 years. And, I put on a good show. We put on a good show. We'd go out with friends when the lockdown had eased. We'd, do things with Zane. It was very calm in our house, to be honest. I don't think that's healthy though either.
Yeah, because mainly that was because of your personality.
My
personality. And
that's
not,
it. Yeah.
Because if it was someone who's more dramatic, it would have been chaos every single
Our
day.
neighbors would be like, what is happening in their household? I wasn't
Yeah.
like that. And there's a baby in the house, there's a baby in the house and
gotta
he's
create the
innocent.
environment.
Yeah.
The right environment.
And I think Zayn was a big factor. And people will be like, that's weird for you to say because, 2-parent household, he deserves it. Yes, he deserves 2 happy, healthy parents. And I didn't want to, in my opinion, carry on any generational behavior that was normalized. And I didn't want to show my son because kids are so smart. By the time where 2 years,
Boys, my God.
my
That's why
child,
we have a lot of broken
of broken men.
Yeah.
Because
But
they
it's just from their
absorb and they
childhood trauma.
see, and I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand. So I was like, I'm raising a boy, and I don't want. Oh, my heart will break if someone's mother, as an adult, comes to me, and it's because of actions that I've known about, and I've normalized as well. Because it repeats. It's generational. So there's a big part of me. He deserves a happy and stable and peaceful environment. And our home was peaceful. It was never, people throwing glasses. I'm not that type of person. I'd rather just go into myself and pretend that that person doesn't exist, which is not healthy. So I was like, I need to do this. I need to be the best version of myself because I saw myself those 2 years. I was not myself. I was, it was chipping away at me internally. I was looking at my son thinking, I don't want this to be your reality because I really didn't believe there was remorse. And I was right. 2 years later, from the first time I found out, there was actually more. And that was, you say to your question, that was like, okay, so if you had every opportunity to be, and it's not easy. I'm not saying it's never easy to go to your partner and say, actually, this is the whole list of things that I've been doing for the past 6 years. But if you look at your wife and you look at your child and you genuinely want to fix your marriage, and this is why when I was in therapy, I was like, I don't understand. Why would someone do that? Why would someone do that? I couldn't comprehend because I couldn't look at you every day and lie and manipulate you. And that's when I was like, no, this is not my person. Because it goes beyond, fine, what you did is what you did, but you can lie every day. You can look at me, genuinely look at me, the mother of your child, and not feel like, oh, this is bad. I need to confess. It's not in your soul is not like weeping. And because that's how I am. So I was like,
and that's what the Bible says, if it's repentance, even in the case of infidelity, because it's not that there are no Christians. I mean, there's no sin that is unforgivable.
exactly.
Even infidelity
agree.
is forgivable,
Yes.
even amongst Christians who've, unfortunately, just because of the fallen human nature, you find yourself in a regrettable sin.
Yes.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that, it happened once. And as a Christian, you have to have room and allowance for forgiveness, or God to even work in your
Work
heart.
in your heart.
But
Yeah.
then there has to be genuine repentance on the other hand,
Yes.
on
Yeah.
the other end. Because if it's not there, then you're enabling, certain behavior
Behavior.
for the rest of your marriage.
Correct.
That's the other side of reality.
Correct.
Sad
Yeah.
reality about
Yeah.
staying in a marriage that is a lot of unfaithfulness.
Yes. And that's what I was like, I didn't want to normalize that for my son because, again, if I'm like, you had every chance, I was there. I was trying to make it work, maybe not as vocal as I should be, but you had every chance to be like, hey, actually, this is what it's about. Or I struggle with this. Or I'm not saying you can never, I don't think you can use it as an excuse, but maybe emotionally I needed more of you. And I went to seek it and it's turned into some addiction, whatever it may be. But yeah. So that's when I decided I was like, no, I can't do this. I can't do this. And I felt quite unsafe. Not because he was like physical abuse or anything like that. I would not put that on his name, but I felt very unsure of myself because I'd made a decision and I'd been with someone for 10 years and I was scared. I was scared of my choices. I was scared of who I was actually living with because I would have never thought that this would have been a thing in my household and not to see it. So I was like, I probably went in a bit of panic mode. I'm like, I'm removing myself from this. I don't feel safe with that person.
Yeah, because your divorce was, 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
I feel like it's among those, most quickest divorce to take place.
Yes.
Especially, I think it's part of one of the laws here in the U.A.E.
Yeah,
and
so
that's why you managed to, because I don't know, maybe if it was in another country, I don't think you would have taken that.
It depends on where you felt working in a law firm helps. I'm so grateful. You know how God puts people into your life. You never know at what point it would make sense. But so the lawyers that helped me with my divorce were colleagues, friends. They're very much, I cherish them so much. But the owner of the law firm, I'd worked, I'm sensible, I'm a hard worker, and I actually called him, which is not my nature at all. We have a good rapport, but to tell him something so personal, and he's like, whatever you need, we will support you. But I had resigned and moved to a new company. So I wasn't even working then. He was like, whatever you need, we'll help you. So the reason why I decided to file for this particular divorce is called no fault divorce in Abu Dhabi court. And it was quite new then, actually. My case was maybe one of a very few amount because Dubai courts is a longer process, which is the typical process that most people would go through. Exactly. Yeah. So I had two choices, and again, everyone's like, you got divorced in 6 weeks, you didn't give it time. I was like, I had 2 years. From the time I found out I was 7 months pregnant, had my son, and then what happened after 2 years, it actually all transpired that there was way more than what I was told. So those 2 years, it wasn't that I had 2 years of saying I'm leaving. I probably did the usual, I have a child, let's bring my son here, we can figure out. He said it was one time, it was a mistake. All of these things, let me stay and figure out. But obviously there was way more. And that made me think this is a behavior that he hasn't really processed as it's not okay. So that's why I decided 6 weeks, because I didn't want a drawn out process. I'm in a foreign country. We own property together. Like, there were so many practical sides, but also emotionally, I couldn't be in that space anymore. I couldn't be in that space. My mental well-being was going to take too much of a hit. So I was like, I know this is what I need to do. So let's do it. And by 6 weeks, we were divorced. And with that, you don't need to prove fault. So you don't need to go through the whole history, whether the person wants the divorce or not, you have the right to get divorced. So that's what I decided. But it was 2 years in the making, to be honest. Yeah, it was 2 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. Let's talk about the journey after divorce. Because we barely ever, I think that word gets thrown in, divorce. But we don't really talk about the reality and the weightiness and the heaviness and the grieving process.
It's hard.
Post-divorce, because then it's one thing to go and file for divorce, but it's another thing to actually go through the dynamics and the changes and just the harsh reality and the labels and the shame and all these things that
so much to it
comes with it. Can we just unpack that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I smile because a friend of mine from the UK, he was like, when are you going to do, we need another episode of Sharon after Divorced in Dubai, which was almost 2 years. And I was like, not now, not yet. I'm not there yet. Wow. In the sense of, I have a big story to tell. I'm so grateful to God for his grace, for getting me to this point where I can smile and talk about it.
Look like it. You look like this. I
was like, God, don't let me go look like what I've been through.
Absolutely.
But it's a journey. So the journey of divorce, they always say, time is a healer, but only if you do the work. because you can
Say
sit
that
there,
again. Say that
listen,
again,
only
sis.
if you do the work. It can be 6 years, and if you have not intentionally done the hard work to work through it, you can be in the same place or even worse, because that scar of divorce it's a heavy one to carry. So I was very intentional to say, I have a son. He deserves a happy, whole, healthy mother. He is also he's going to have to deal with the reality of being in a single parent household. You know, he deserves the best of me. If this is what the decision I made, because I decided to file for divorce, he deserves a happy, whole mum. He deserves a peaceful household. So of course, Zayn was a big factor of that. But for myself, I needed to unpack this, because you could never, the sensible, practical Sharon, you could never say this is my reality. And I had a lot of shame around it, and there is no shame around it. Single mum, oh my gosh, I'm a single mum.
Yeah.
I was so embarrassed. I'm a single mum. And I filed for divorce. My ex-husband was cheating on me, and I didn't know. That weight of shame and embarrassment kept me silent for a long time. It was the worst feeling ever. So the first thing I did was therapy. And everyone says divorce is like a grief. And I was
How
like,
early did you sign up for
oh,
therapy?
I would say probably like a month into it. As soon as I could get my head around, this is what I'm doing, I was like, I'm going to need help to get through this in the right way without spiraling or, you know, using unhealthy ways to cope. Because it is a grief. You know, I lost my dad in 2015, and I always use this. So I've seen grief, like, and I'll go into the detail only to kind of understand the comparison. So unfortunately, my dad passed quite quickly. He had a heart attack in his sleep, was on life support. I'm in Dubai. So, you know, that dreaded phone call, which we all pray we don't get. You need to come now. Dad is on life support. So I land, and then I think maybe 2 days, there's nothing we can do. There's no brain activity. There's nothing we can do. We're just keeping his like heart going, but there's nothing. So I get that call, middle child. I'll talk about that. It was always like, Sharon, you get that call from the hospital, and then, you know, you kind of tell us. So anyway, I get that call, and I was like, we have to go. They're going to turn off the machine. So I've watched my dad pass it probably took 3 days. You know, so the physical grief, the emotional weight of seeing someone die in front of you slowly, I've seen all of that. I've felt all of that. Probably suppressed it as well, because that's probably the time I should have done therapy. But that same feeling came back when I filed for divorce.
And that's what they say. Divorce is like, it's like grieving someone who's passed on.
I would have never. And sometimes it's harder because you're two living people, you know? I'm processing.
That's why it makes it harder. Yeah.
It's like it's a death of two living people, but you're grieving the plans that you had, the future that you were building, the 10 years of your life,
The community.
the reality of, and also I still grieve for Zayn. I still grieve. That's always a trigger for me. I grieve for my son not having. I wasn't in a rush to be a mother, you know. I was very much like, yeah, it will happen. And, you know, I wasn't, but I always wanted to do this with somebody, you know. I always wanted to raise my child with somebody. So I had to like unpack and grieve that that's not going to be my reality. It's not going to be Zayn's reality. And he's so innocent. You know, I didn't bring him into this world to come into this mess. So all these layers. So there was a lot of grief. So through that, I really needed to get help to unpack the shame, because I was very embarrassed. So I went into therapy very quickly. And probably the first 5 sessions were ugly, crying for 1 hour. I couldn't even tell you if I was speaking. I just remember shedding tears, and just, why is this happening to me? I don't understand. How did I not see this? You know, all of that. But I needed to let that go, because I wasn't very good with showing my emotions. I'm that type where I'll cry in the bathroom, come out smiling, and get on with my work. No one needs to know that I'm upset. You know, I wasn't very good at being vulnerable.
Which is sad. You know, that's what they say about strong women. And that's why strong women, please stop trying to be strong.
Stop.
I mean, God is the only strong one.
Right?
As long as you're a human being,
We're not.
we have limits as to how much we can take up when it comes to some of these harsh realities that life throws at us. And it's okay to be vulnerable.
Oh.
Yeah. So I think we need to drop those labels of, oh, I'm strong, or honestly, if you label yourself as one who's strong, you need to go through therapy.
You have to unpack it.
Therapy as
Vulnerability is such a blessing. And I think, again, our upbringing, I would say, like, I have a very strong mother, and I'm grateful for those traits because it's allowed me to still be here, raise my son, grow, learn. Like, she's taught us independence, and I needed those. And, God always knows why, right? If I didn't have this, how am I going to look after myself and my child? I've always had that independence, which I'm grateful for. But with that, it made me, not now, it made me very closed off. And I think less emotional. And that's why I take accountability maybe in my marriage. He maybe needed someone that he could be a bit more emotional with, and I wasn't given that space. So maybe that's a thing as well. But yeah, so therapy helped me to unpack. It helped me to release. It helped me to release the shame. So my therapist, thank God, just through talking, because obviously naturally they won't say their faith or their religion, but then, we would unpack and I would talk about God because I ran to God. I was like, you are the only person I can rely on. And I was a Christian. I wasn't dedicated going to church. I didn't read the Bible all the time, but I would say I'm a Christian. Did I know God? No. When I wanted something, I would pray. That very, like, I would take the sound bites from, the reels out, like, woo, ask and you shall receive. But I didn't know him. I didn't even know that, I didn't fully understand how fallen we are as human beings. And my therapist was like, but Sharon, this is in the Bible. It's been there. Because she was trying to get me to normalize that it's not your fault. It's not just you that hasn't seen this or has had, this sin in your marriage. So that made me just cleave to God even harder and seek him. So therapy, yes. Church, I'm so grateful for fellowship because we both go there. And they did a 5-week divorce cares course. Wow. So every Sunday for 5 weeks, so about 2 hours, there'll be a small intimate group of people that had either gone through divorce, were considering divorce, and walked through the process. And I think also to help people understand, particularly in my thing, I mean, adultery, it was infidelity, and that is a term of divorce biblically, although of course you can forgive, there can be remorse, some people have like thriving marriages after this. I think that's even more beautiful because if you can go through that, what more, right? And if character changes and faith and everything, it's a testimony. A
huge testimony.
So I got to hear different perspectives, learn from others, learn that it's not just me as a Christian woman, take away the guilt of filing for divorce. As an African Christian woman with a child and a son, you must be crazy. And I didn't tell a lot of family members because I know the advice would be stay.
Yeah.
I was so grateful for because my dad had passed then. My mum, she would never tell us to leave our marriage. Culturally, you just don't do that. But she just said, find your peace. She came and she was with me. And she's always known me to be the strong daughter.
Was she among the first ones that you mentioned too about divorce?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I can speak to my mum like that. I can be quite honest with her in that way.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's very necessary to have that one person that you can be vulnerable with, especially when you're a closed off person.
Yes.
You definitely need that 1-2 people that you can be, you can tell them your reality without any
what
fear.
I'm thinking. Yeah. No, I could always do that with my mum. I know my mum's answer because over time she's softened and she's gotten older and she's more vulnerable. As you age, you get more vulnerable. When there's grandchildren, you're softer. But she always gives the more practical side to life. She'll be the cheerleader, like pushing me. So she came. She's like, I'm coming. We slept in the same bed together. We did visits. We bought my car together. She was there because she saw me crumbling and she doesn't see me like this. My elder sister, younger sister, emotional. I say they're emotional, but they're normal actually. If anything, the therapist helped me to know that you actually need to be more emotional.
Yeah.
She struggled with seeing me in that way because I don't cry.
That side of you.
I get on with it. We'll be fine. So she also needed to see her daughter in this way to know that vulnerability is okay. And I think it also taught her a big lesson about life and how we need to be more emotional and, using the title of like, Sharon, you're the strong one. You're okay. Give me room to grieve. So that was beautiful, actually. I think from our dynamic and our relationship, it helped a lot that she got to see me in that way. So my mother was definitely a pillar as well. And the church. And since then, I have just been continuing to seek God because I didn't find it normal. I was like, I know people get divorced, but to me, it's a big deal. I loved being a wife. I love having the family dynamic. Says the person that filed for divorce. So that weight of losing that, I loved having that person to grow, to seek purpose with. So it was a big deal for me. It was a big deal. So I wanted to find the healthiest ways to work through it, to get to this point where I could actually talk about it and use it as a testimony and hopefully help others that are feeling this weight, because it's hard. Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah. I mean, you're still young. I mean, looking beautiful and amazing.
Thank you.
Very attractable.
Thank you.
And I'm curious to know, how did you navigate and deal with the cynicism of marriage, especially after divorce? Because then there's this perception, whether we like it or not, after a failed marriage, you have to work through getting to a place of perceiving marriage as a beautiful gift.
Yeah.
And being open
Yep.
to it.
Yep.
And for some people, it's a journey that they never get to of ever seeing or perceiving marriage as something beautiful, just because of their past experiences. Is it something that you've had to navigate, and what space are you in right now?
Oh, yeah. Do you know, I'm so grateful to God in terms of the way that he's designed me, because I had every reason to be, I hate all men are cheaters. And that can stay with you. You know, I have a few solid guy friends. You know, I don't have a big circle of like male friends. Naturally, I was in a relationship, married for 10 years. But the ones that I've known from university, you know, you'll hear stories of like when someone's been cheated on, they literally paint the same brush across all men. Or unfortunately, they've been divorced and then they insert it into their children. You know, oh, you know, men are this, your dad is this. I God forbid, I would never. So I think I was grateful that I didn't have that type of bitterness. I was hurt and I was shocked based on that individual, you know. So I've always been open. There are great men out there. I truly believe it. I know I'm not in the dating, and people, if they listen, they'll roll. When I speak to friends, they're like, yeah, well, you haven't been in this dating game. But there are great men, great women. They're not so great men, not so great women. So it never kind of closed me off to that, but I definitely knew I wanted to be by myself. I spent 3 years by myself. I could say maybe only now I've been on 1 or 2 dates, very informally. I did not date anybody. I didn't even hold hands with anybody. I spent time by myself, because the worst thing I could have done, which is also quite a normal thing, is to spiral and go and seek comfort and attention in the wrong place or in a very unhealthy place. Because also as a woman, if you find out your husband has been cheating on you multiple times with different women as well, that can knock your confidence. What's wrong with me? Am I not enough? But I had the wisdom to know it was bigger than me. Maybe, yes, I wasn't emotionally, you know, in tune or there enough, or too kind of focused on like building our family and our career, not really checking in on that person. But that is their journey. That is something that they need to deal with. So I didn't take that on as like it's all me and, you know, I'm not attractive and there's something wrong with me. But equally, I knew I didn't want to just go into dating for the sake of just loneliness, because that is quite a normal thing people do. I've always been okay by myself in terms of I love my own company. I remember way before I even got married or met my ex-husband, my dad was like, it'll be interesting to see you married because you're so okay by yourself. But not knowing that gift of being comfortable by myself has served me really well for these last 3 years to heal fully, to unpack and self-discover, to love on myself even more, to understand my boundaries, my values, my non-negotiables, who I want to be as a wife to that person, how I want to add purpose to that person's life, and also what I seek in my husband as well. So I was okay, but I didn't go into it thinking, I want to be alone forever. I want to be alone for a period of time, and I knew I needed to do that. I don't think all men are this. No. I think I just pray for discernment, that God gives me the discernment and wisdom not to waste my time on the wrong person, or not to convince myself that, oh, you know, they're okay. It's just to see them for who they are. They always say, like, you will know them by their fruits. So what fruit do they bear? Are they consistent? Are they dependable?
Absolutely.
And act on that. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm grateful for that. Yeah.
So are you open right now?
Oh, I'm open.
Okay.
Yeah, I said 2025. It's been 3 years. I have done a lot by myself. I've traveled, and I loved all of it. I love to travel by myself anyway. I've traveled by myself. I've raised my son pretty much by myself.
Yeah.
I've started a communications platform. You know, there's so much that I've done alone by the grace of God. So if he has given me all of this, what more with the right partner?
Yeah.
to fulfill purpose for me and for them.
Yeah.
So I said this year it's partnership.
Yeah.
Now, don't ask me. I don't know how to date in Dubai yet.
Yeah.
But I pray that God at least gives me the heart posture to, be intentional. I think dating, you have to be intentional, right? From what I'm learning a lot. I intentionally listen to Christian podcasts that talk about dating and seeking value and what marriage should be. I'm reading the Bible around the essence of marriage. And that's why I said I wish I did that years ago, because marriage is not about me. It's not about me being annoyed that you leave the toilet seat up. Or you squeeze the toothpaste from the mid. What? It's about purpose. Because also, and when I was married, it was these petty things. I'd be like, oh, why are your shoes there?
Yeah.
I don't care. Leave your shoes there. Because what is the purpose? Why has God put us together? How are we glorifying Him?
Love it.
So,
Absolutely love it. Love it.
Yeah.
And you touched a bit on just raising your son by yourself. And as a single mom, having gone through what you've gone through, how have you been intentional in creating a healthy space of raising your son? Because I think the unfortunate reality, especially for a lot of women, when it comes to failed relationship, marriages, baby daddy and all this stuff, a lot of women live with a lot of bitterness and they transfer it to their children. And it ends up spiraling, as you say, because then the child ends up with trauma. And then as they grow up, almost it becomes a generational cycle. That somebody has to intentionally break and say it's gonna end here. So for you, I mean, we've talked outside of this podcast on how you've become very intentional in creating a healthy space for your son to grow up in a healthy environment. What are some of those things that you've been able to incorporate or do to just make sure that your son is growing in a healthy way?
Do you know what? And I think because everyone's like, when I did my first episode, Divorce in Dubai, people felt I spoke with such grace about the infidelity. And I did, because also I was like, I was married to that person. I might not have known them. I would say I don't fully know them, but I could see where this pattern had come from. Let's just say, obviously.
Plus, it was a year after. So you'd taken time off to, begin your healing journey before you did that episode, right?
Yeah. It was like a year. No, oh gosh, I would not be able to. Exactly. I'd just be crying through like 45 minutes. It wouldn't even be constructive. So it was a year after. If there was time had passed. So yes, but even still, people 10 years later, that pain and bitterness can linger. And I think the enemy uses that.
10 is even little, the people who live with it. Yeah.
It's a weight. So for me, Zayn is my trigger. So I'm not going to lie, the dynamics of what I saw, kind of like not stepping up for him in the way that I would, or in the way that we had raised him. He was in the labor room with me, brought him home. So close. They look alike. People will look at Zayn and I'm like, can we? I was like, yeah, it's his dad. He's handsome. He's a great young boy. Like, we created this being together. There's no malice around that. He's smart. He's got his dad's intelligence. I can say that openly. He's got great traits of his father. But yes, being here alone, raising him, that was a weight. And I got very frustrated with it. And I think disappointed, because again, I'm still unpacking who is this person. Because you could have never told me that this even would be our parenting dynamic, But I had to release that I can't control. You can't control anybody. Absolutely. If they're going to be great fathers, they'll be great fathers. If they're going to have affairs, they're going to have affairs. If I'm going to be a great mother, I'm going to be a great mother. If I choose not to, I choose not to. I had to release it. And that took me, I would say, 2 years. That was something that was like, for me, because I'm like, this child is innocent. And one thing I wanted to be sure, because I decided to leave. I could have stayed married, My ex-husband wanted us to be married. So I also had to process that he deserves the good education that I promised he would have, whether I was married or not. He deserves the activities. He deserves to explore. He deserves to have a childhood. I don't want that to be a 2-year-old feeling this weight of 2 adults that couldn't stay married or made bad decisions. So I've always been intentional with Zayn. I'm very intentional to make sure that he's a child. He doesn't bear any of my stresses of, having to raise a household, raise him, work full time, He doesn't need to know any of that. It's not his responsibility. And I've gotten to a place where I just have to accept, if this is the dynamic for now with his father, this is the dynamic for now. It's not ideal. And I look for triggers and I look for trauma, because obviously he's a very smart boy and he misses his dad, of course. But the situation that we're in, the way things are set up, his dad is not here. I had to release and accept that for him. but I will never put toxicity into his mind about his father. Why? What is that going to do for him, and what's that going to do for me? It's not fair that he has to carry any of that weight. And he's so young. So I'm intentional in that way. I think people that know me, I'm probably overly intentional. We communicate a lot. I want him to tell me his feelings. I need to know when he's missing his dad. I need to understand why he's sad. I pray God gives me the language to help him. I'm a woman trying to raise a very young boy. I know the gap when there is not that male role model, and he doesn't have that at the moment, to be honest. We're a very female orientated family. This is what he's seeing. He's seeing his mum at the moment, day in, day out, doing things, but he's happy. I know he's happy. I know he's safe. Our home is so peaceful. That's why I was like, if I was to remarry and God wants me to rebuild, peace of mind is so important. Our home is so peaceful. Like there's no, like, you know, sometimes you get that silent energy and people are on edge, or the child is scared, not because there's like physical abuse or people are shut. There's just unhappiness that's unspoken. It's not there. And I'm so grateful for that. And I just prayed to God. I said, God, you are the father to the fatherless. Take Zane's hand, take my hand, and just walk with us through this. And that's what he's been doing.
I love it. And you do allow him to see or talk to his father?
He speaks to him on a weekly basis. Yeah, he's not here. Last year, I took him to the UK because he hadn't seen him for a year physically. And that's trauma. It's not normal. So, and that caused a lot of confusion when he came back. And that was my biggest fear, the questions and the this, and I just had to pray on it. Like it was heavy. It was heavy because he's innocent and he misses his dad and he loves his dad and he knows him. You know, it's not one of those things that he's never seen his dad before. He knows him. So that's probably going to be something that is going to take me time to navigate with him.
Yeah. And I pray for more grace. I know it's not an easy journey. But I pray for grace and wisdom.
Yes.
And just the right knowledge that you need in order to raise him in a healthy way. But I think, as you said, the reality is God takes care of the fatherless. And that's a truth that you have to firmly anchor yourself in, especially in those moments when you feel inadequate and you feel like, you know, wishful thinking of, this is what I would wish for my son, but then it's not the reality. But God has a way of filling those gaps and, you know,
so true,
and needs and the fears and anxieties that I would want to think as a single mom you have to battle every day.
Yes, you've said it right. We pray every morning. I think there's something that I've instilled in Zane. I'm like, God, give mummy the wisdom to look after Zane, you know, let Zane continue to know you and love you. And it's just to affirm, you know, affirm him, affirm the situation, ask for guidance. And I love doing that with him. It sets our day right. And it's just when we're driving to school because it's heavy. A woman trying to raise a little boy to be a man, and God willing, I don't think it will always stay like that, and it will work out. And you know, I'm praying that comes. But for now, I need to understand how to navigate that.
Okay, so as we almost land this conversation, what are some of the lessons that, looking back at your journey, perhaps things that you wish you knew earlier before entering marriage, or the lessons that you've learned along the way to the healing space that you are in right now?
I think as a Christian, as a Christian now who's matured in my relationship with God, understanding the foundation of marriage, really understanding, because I think I let a lot of petty, silly things, like people do argue about, you know, mess, personal hygiene, that's a non-negotiable for me, but silly things like your shoes and all of that stuff, like that, does that glorify God? Does that bring purpose? And that can consume your household. You know, there can be days where someone is giving silent treatment for days because you left the toilet seat up. We're missing the whole point.
And that's why they say in marriage, don't sweat the small stuff. If you take that advice before marriage, and then you're not going to struggle in marriage.
It's so true. You have to also be selfless. You have to die to self a bit. Okay, these are my habits, but I'm now building a new life, a home with someone else that's supposed to be purposeful. So I think definitely understand that foundation of marriage if you are, you know, a Christian or whatever that your beliefs are. I think your values, knowing yourself, which goes back to that point. Me, God willing, getting married now. Oh my goodness.
And we'll come for the wedding.
You will be front row, because that evolution of how I have discovered myself, and it's unspoken. Like people I've known for years. They're like, Sharon, this is the most authentic I've seen you, the most light I have seen you. And can you imagine, it's taken me to be so broken to get to this point of like, where someone that has known me for 10 years is saying, this is a great version of you. Like you are great. Your energy, everyone talks about energy. Your energy is just shining through. So self-discovery, not embarrassed or shy to ask the question. I'm not even saying they're difficult questions. They're questions. People need to know whether people want to tell you the truth or not. But I would say it always comes out eventually. You know, you'll know them by their character, or for me, maybe six or 10 years later, you see it in front of you, right? So, but ask, because then at least nobody can use that excuse, you never asked me. I think ask those questions. I think now in this journey of like wanting to rebuild my family, I think family and marriage is beautiful. I think be intentional and being open to receive love. I think if you've gone through divorce and you've healed, but be ready when you're healed. You know, I had a lot of friends shortly after my divorce, you should go on a date. No. You should meet. No. And they didn't understand. I'm at home on the weekends, I'm fine. You know, I'm with Zane. And also I'm rebuilding. This is something that the church told, you know, I had to remind myself, rebuilding takes time. I'm now picturing what's my retirement like as a single person if I was never to remarry? Where do I want to retire? What does Zane's education look like as a solo mum on one income? Where do I want to live? Okay, we've sold our property. Do I want to buy again? I was in very practical mode, and it took good stewardship I had one friend who was amazing. I didn't have to say much, but she was like, she knows me as a very practical person, and she became a widow quite suddenly. And she was like, as much as I was grieving, I had to quickly switch to, okay, I need to get this in place. I need to invest here. And she knew my mind was starting to think around these things. So she would advise, she would give me, you know, the right contacts. And I'm so grateful for those conversations. It doesn't always have to be about how is divorce, and no, like, how are you rebuilding your life? So yeah, I think also be in a foundation where you have built yourself, where you're comfortable by yourself, and you can add value then to somebody else's life. I want to be valuable to my next partner. You know, I want to be in a clear headspace and healed where I can add value to their purpose, because I'm supposed to be their helpmate, right? I'm not going to be able to help you if I'm not even in a good space, or I don't even know my own purpose. So I think it all starts with you first. Be the person that you want to be with before you go into kind of thinking about being in a new relationship and rebuilding. Yeah.
Love that. And what advice would you give somebody who's perhaps gone through divorce and they're still carrying the label and the shame of divorce? And then it's very hard to assume that this is not a part of something that happened to you. So then, you know, just that image of when people see Sharon, they're like, oh yeah, that divorce, you know. So what advice would you give? How to let go
work
of the
through
shame,
releasing that. And it's because that's the thing that kept me silent. That's the thing that kept me stuck. My therapist, she smelt me from a mile off. She was like, you're holding on to shame. And I didn't even understand what she was saying. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, have you told Zane's teacher that you're a single? I was like, no way. I'm not telling her I'm a single. And also I think there's a stigma of like single black mum. I had this whole thing in my head that he is a black boy and he has a single mum and the dad is not around. You know, that perception, it was eating me up. And I was like, I will not. And she was like, tell her, because when it's Father's Day, she will then have maybe a bit more grace to know how to deal with the children that maybe don't have their fathers at home, because they make things, right? Or, you know, when it's Mother's Day and you're always there alone, she will maybe have the grace to help you on Mother's Day to be like, oh, it's okay. So you have to release that shame. You have to work through that, because I think the enemy will keep you stuck in that shame. And that's how he attacks the mind. And, you know, all these negative thoughts can come through it. It's not easy. And depending on the dynamic of divorce, whatever it is, like, God is a loving and forgiving God. If it's you that has caused hurt, repent, ask for forgiveness, work on yourself, you know, really work on yourself to be a better version for whatever you did. Even if it's not you, forgive and work on yourself. But I think you have to release that shame, because it will keep you stuck. So whatever tools or support system, and therapy is expensive, so not everyone has the blessing to go through therapy. but whatever network that is healthy for you to unpick that and just talk to yourself, yes, I'm divorced. Yes, it's heavy. It's not what I wanted, but it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, part of talking is part of healing is actually
You
talking
have
about
to.
it instead of
Yeah.
hiding under the
Yes.
veil of shame
Yeah.
and the weightiness that comes with it.
Yeah, and I that is not my nature. It's definitely not my nature to sit on a podcast and talk about this is what it was God that was literally like, this is going to be your testimony. I'm going to push you into your I would have never have discovered this side of me. And it's unfortunate that I've had to go through all of this and go through divorce and lose a lot, but there's so much beauty that has come out of it.
I love it.
So, yeah, it is pain into purpose. It really has been that journey.
Absolutely. And I think that's the beauty about God. He takes the broken pieces of our lives and he makes a masterpiece. And sometimes when God wants to grab your attention or when he wants you fully to yourself, sometimes it comes the hard way, but at the end of the day, God gets all the glory because literally you wouldn't be sitting here looking this beautiful with such past reality of things that have happened to you if purely was not God's grace that has sustained you and kept you and even given you the wisdom to know how to navigate this conversation and boldly speak about it because it takes a lot of boldness.
Don't get me wrong. I was like, I think this is the third time, maybe, or second time that I've publicly spoken about my divorce in this way. Like I did the first time, but then I just go back to because I know we're going to wrap up. I obviously got baptized recently.
Yes, saw that. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. I know they do the picture and on the screen, but I don't know they share the testimonies. So I was in church, front row, and there was a group of this is why I sat there and I giggled to myself. I'm like, God, like this is what it was all about.
Yeah,
and this is Sharon, and she has been 3 years divorced, and she's come to God, and she's released her pain. I was like, wow, hearing it out loud. But you know what? That journey got me to a place of where he's like, you're going to turn to me. This is going to be so painful, but this is all going to be about me.
Yeah.
So hearing it called out in church in that way, I was like, this is what it was about.
Yeah. It was such a public testimony of now I have her heart and her full attention. Yeah, and that's beautiful. I'm really proud of you, proud of your journey and the far that God has brought you and everything that he's been working in your life, just turning all that pain into something beautiful. And I think as we finalize this conversation, where can people find you? You run a podcast. Maybe you can share all the details. Please go watch. She has the full story of her journey.
It's way down. Episode 1.
So, this one was more of like a summarized version. But then if you want all the tea,
the tea is there
to pick out from her journey, definitely you can check out her podcast and then you can share where people can find you.
Yeah, so Let's Talk DXB. So let's.talk DXB on Instagram, but YouTube, Let's Talk DXB. And it's really about authentic, diverse and educational conversations. I've been in Dubai for 12 years and I felt when I was going through and I was not the only one, but you always go through, it's just me. I'd go to the office, everyone's like, what did you do over the weekend? Obviously, I wasn't telling people. I was just at home. Like, why are you always at home? We went to brunch, and I just felt like people are going through life, We need very constructive conversations, particularly within our community. I say African community, when you bring faith into it as well. Nobody's talking about this stuff openly. And it's hard. I understand why people wouldn't, because it's really hard. But I wanted to start something where people could at least go and get wisdom, comfort, understanding. So Let's Talk DXB is my baby. It's 2 years in May. Wow. And I just pray that God continues to use it as a testimony and he uses it to bless others. It's beyond me now. This is not just about me anymore. Yeah. It's about how do I serve others through Let's Talk.
Yeah. And I love it. So make sure you subscribe, follow her social media platform and just get to be a part of this amazing work that God is doing through you and just using your pain to be such a testimony of purpose and just the many amazing things that God desires to do through your life and through your story. So I'm really happy and proud of you.
Thank you. Wow.
Thank you for coming and sharing your journey and your story. And I mean, healing looks amazing on you.
By the grace of God, honestly. It's by the grace of God.
Yes, and also testimony that for anyone who perhaps is going through that journey of divorce or just troublesome marriage or whatever season you are in, that there's hope at the end of the tunnel. So thank you so much, Sharon. It's been such a joy doing this together with you. And for our listeners and viewers, thank you so much for tuning in today. I really do hope that you have been challenged by this particular episode, that you've learned a lot. You've been inspired by this conversation to know that healing is possible. Unfortunately, things happen in life, but God is here, to take us through the broken parts and journeys of our lives. But thank you so much for tuning in and listening from the beginning to the very end of this podcast. Looking forward to our next conversation. Remember to share this episode with someone around you. Don't forget to subscribe and like and leave your comment, something that you've learned from today's conversation. But until next time, it is a goodbye.